preaching, and I started preaching 22 or 23 sermons that I actually was proud of out of all those. And I don't know, my wife says I'm too hard, and I'm sure I am. I'm my biggest critic, but I just, because I know how, she says, well, you did fine in the message. Like, yeah, but you don't know how it was supposed to go, how I thought it was supposed to go. I'm a preacher, though. It just kind of messes with you. We're going to be in the book of Revelation, chapter 1 and chapter 2. We're going to do quite a bit of reading to start with and talk about a couple of things in here. I don't really have a title necessarily. It's going to be getting back into a couple of foundational things because that's important to do. You good now, baby? All right, good. I'm going to start reading in verse 10 in Revelation chapter 1. It's John talking, John the Revelator, John the disciple, John the beloved. He's got a lot of nicknames. He says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard behind me a great voice, as of a trumpet, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou seest, write in a book, and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, unto Smyrna, unto Pergamos, unto Thyatira, unto Sardis, unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 golden candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead, and he laid his right hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I am the first and the last. I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and death. Write the things which thou hast seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. I'm going to stop right there for a minute, and I'm going to pray, and then we'll get into chapter 2 and read about the church of Ephesus and the letter that Jesus sent. Talk about a couple things, and hopefully this will all work out right. But pray with me if you will. Father, we thank you so much for your word. We thank you for the opportunity to be here. We know the situation is a little different. It's a little awkward. It's kind of hard to transition from work to coming here and trying to preach. I'm not used to this, and I'm sure nobody here is. But God, we just pray that your Holy Spirit take over right now in the name of Jesus. That you just begin to speak through me any way you see fit. Speak into our hearts, open hearts to receive the message that you laid out for tonight. This is not my plan. It's all up to you, Holy Spirit. And I rely on you 100% to do this. And for you to touch people's lives. I can't do any of it, God. It's got to be you. You've got to change lives. You've got to change hearts. You've got to help reveal truth into us. I can't do it. I'm just your tool, your messenger, whatever you want to call it, your servant. And I surrender myself to be used in that life right now. Just your anointing to go forth. Your anointing to be upon me. Your anointing to be upon the people that are here and those that may watch the video to receive of the word that you have for us tonight. And we thank you for this. And we just praise your holy, wonderful name. And I ask these things in Jesus' name. Thank you. Again, I'm going to talk to you from a couple of foundational things that I think it's important that every so often you just have to go back and review. There's probably not much I'm going to say today that's new to anybody here, except for maybe Kayla. I don't know how much she knows. And we'll just kind of see how it goes. If I had to title it, I'd probably call it Going Back to the Beginning. And I want to talk about Jesus a little bit because he's kind of the key figure in this setting of scriptures that I read. And he's the one writing the letters to the church, or telling John to write the letters. And he's telling John what to say to the church. And right now I'm going to go ahead and read the letter he wrote to Ephesus because it's important to what I want to get into. And Jesus talking, and he says, Unto the angel of the church of Ephesus write, These things saith he that holdeth the 7 stars in his right hand, who walketh in the midst of the 7 golden candlesticks. I know thy works, and thy labor, and thy patience, and how thou canst not bear them which are evil, and thou hast tried them, which say they are apostles and are not, and hast found them liars, and hast borne and hast patience, and for my name's sake hast labored and hast not fainted. Nevertheless, I have somewhat against thee, because thou hast left thy first love. Remember therefore from whence thou art fallen, and repent, and do the first works, or else I will come unto thee quickly, and will remove thy candlestick out of his place, except thou repent. But this thou hast, that thou hatest the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which thou also hate. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. Jesus is writing his letter. Now I want you to kind of set the stage for a little bit here. Because John, the disciple, he is on the island of Patmos at this moment. The island of Patmos was a place where criminals went. They were condemned for whatever reason, and he got sent over there according to his writings in a couple of verses ahead of where I read. He was sent there for the testimony of Christ. So he was there. He was actually there because the king or emperor or whoever was in power there was afraid of him, because they tried to kill John several times and God always delivered him. Recently, before he got banished to the island of Patmos, they had put him in a big old pot of oil. This is recorded in Fox's Book of Martyrs. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. They tried to boil him to death. And how they did that, is a big old pot of, I don't know what kind of oil. I just imagine vegetable oil, because, that's what we deep fry stuff with. But they lowered you down. They tied you up, and they lowered you down feet first. And they would literally lower you down really, really slow, and the flesh would boil off. They would let it boil down to bone. So it was a very slow, very painful thing. And they did that and sunk John all the way down into the vat of oil. And then they have a hook that they send through there to dig out the bones and stuff like that, because this oil is really, really hot. I had to do some research on that and see how they did that. And I was like, that is gruesome. And that is very weird. But when they got ready to get the bones out, they pulled John up. He was still alive. He was not hurt at all. It was kind of like the 3 Hebrew children in the fiery furnace again. There was no evidence that he'd even been in the oil. So the emperor was afraid of him. Like, we can't kill him, so let's get him out of here. So he sent him to the island of Patmos. The island of Patmos was full of criminals, and it was recorded in church history that John actually kind of semi-started a church on that island with the criminals, began to teach them, pray with them. He got several of them saved while he's there. And at this time, he's around 92 years old, I believe. He's pretty old. And he's there, and he don't know what all is going to happen in his life. But I want to remind you, at the end of John, Peter had asked Jesus, at the end of the book of John, Peter had asked Jesus, after Jesus told him, you go feed my sheep, you go feed my lambs. And he straightened Peter out on what Peter was to do. Peter turned around because he knows it, and he says, well, what about this guy? What's he supposed to do? And Jesus more or less told him it's none of his business. He said, if I will that he tarry till I come, what's that to you? Well, he's fulfilling the prophecy right here, if you will. I know John wrote it out like Jesus didn't necessarily mean it, and I know Jesus didn't come in the light of the rapture of the church or the second coming or anything like that, but he did come to John at the island of Patmos. So that statement that Jesus made is fulfilled here in this moment. And so he's on this island full of criminals. He's still doing what he's been doing. He's been teaching the criminals about Jesus. He's kind of starting churches. And it says he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. Now we always take that to mean the Sabbath day, but I've done some research and I heard somebody else talk about this, and I'm not 100% sure. You can take this or leave it. I don't know, and I may be wrong about this, but from what I'm gathering, that actually, he used the word Lord's Day, but it was actually a day dedicated to devil worship from some other deal. He's just in there, some other cult or whatever kind of religion. I'm not real sure where it all stimulated from, but he's worshiping Jesus on a day where everybody else is in tune with these false idols or whatever the case may be, and Jesus shows up. And Jesus shows up for a purpose, to write letters to the churches. And I want to talk about the church of Ephesus because that's the first one that he deals with. But before I do that, I want to kind of point out a couple things out of verse 1. John turns, he's in the Spirit, is what he says. I'm in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and all of a sudden I heard this voice talking to me, and it sounded just like a great trumpet. And, it was loud. And he said, I turned to see the voice, and he sees this vision of Jesus, or he sees Jesus rather, and he sees the golden candlesticks, which we know according to Jesus, the golden candlesticks are the churches. That's what Jesus said. 7 golden candlesticks are the churches. That's important because to a point I want to bring out here in a minute. And he sees Jesus, and the vision of Jesus is so awesome and so powerful, and the glory that is shining through Jesus at this moment when John sees him, it knocks John off his feet. It says, I fell down as I was dead at his feet. And he just collapsed. He was just in weakness. Kayla knows what that's like. She collapsed a couple times here. So, but I mean, imagine his experience was a little more dramatic. But anyway, Jesus has to lay his right hand on him and kind of revive him and says, fear not. And he gets into that discourse. What I wanted to point out is when John turned, he says, the first thing I saw was 7 golden candlesticks. And we know those are the churches because right now, we are a church, and we know that God has big plans for us, and we know that we're going to have to go out and face the darkness that's out there sooner or later. And I know with life and everything else, sometimes things get hectic, and sometimes things get jacked up, and our confidence, maybe even our faith, gets messed with every now and then if we face circumstances that are in opposition to what we're trying to do, or things don't work the way we think they ought to. I don't know about you, but there's not a whole lot of stuff in my life that works the way I would like it to. Most of the time it just does not. And so you're always dealing with frustrations and everything else. But sometimes, I've heard some of you say over the year, a little over a year we've been here, that at times, it's times where I feel like I'm far away from Jesus. At times where I feel like He's just a million miles away and I can't always hear Him, or I don't feel His presence like I used to, or whatever. But John sees the golden candlesticks, which are the churches. According to Jesus, those are the churches. But he says, and in the midst of the 7 golden candlesticks. And the first thing I want you to understand is a foundational thing that we need to understand really fully. I know we know it, but we really need to get it into our hearts and in our minds. And it needs to be something that propels our faith in every situation that we face. Because we face situations and sometimes we feel alone, or we feel like we're doing it on our own strength and everything else. So what do you notice? You notice the failures. You notice the things that don't work. And that don't always give you a lot of hope. It don't give you a lot of confidence. But I want you to know, in the midst of the 7 golden candlesticks, Jesus is standing there. What is that symbolic of? Jesus walks in the middle of His churches. We don't do anything without Jesus present. We're not doing this stuff alone. We're not singing these songs on our own strength. We're not here preaching by ourselves. Jesus walks in the middle of us no matter what. And I want you to get this. It's not just when we gather here. Because we're the church, not this building. Everything we do, whether I'm at Butterball, whether I'm not, whether I'm in a hospital getting a cesarean, whatever is going on in life, Jesus is walking in the midst of that. He's there, and that's why we're going to be victorious, and that's why things are going to work. Because Jesus will not leave us and let us stay in failure. He's not going to let us see defeat. Why? Because our victory is wrapped up in Him, and He already overcame the world. Our problem is not necessarily about victory and defeat. Our problem is in our faith. Our problem is in how we believe things and how we're looking at things a lot of times. Because when things look bad and we forget that Jesus is in the midst of us, that He's walking with us, we tend to see the problem bigger than our problem doesn't become bigger than God, and that's where we mess up. So I want you to know that that's something that's got to change. The foundational thing that Jesus built the church on is Himself. He built it on Himself. He's the chief cornerstone. He is the foundation, and that's important. Without a foundation, nothing stands. That's right. You know, when you build a house, I've built a lot of them in my life and helped remodel a lot of them. If the foundation is weak, the whole building's weak. It doesn't matter how elaborate you make everything else. If the foundation is jacked up, you're on a weak slab. That's just the way it is. And if the foundation falls, the whole thing's coming down. That's the thing. We stand on a sure foundation. We stand on a foundation that cannot be overthrown. We stand on a foundation that cannot be broken. It cannot be shaken. It cannot be moved. Jesus will never be defeated. He's already got victory for all of us. Our only job is to stay on that foundation. That's it. That's all we got to do. Well, how do we do that? We got to believe and keep our faith centered on Jesus Christ all the time, no matter what's going on in our life. Because I'm telling you, I'm not just talking about everyday problems we face in life. I'm talking about when we go face the darkness. You think devil ain't going to rear his head and fight back when we go out there and start preaching the gospel? When we start trying to get people that He's using and we start destroying that darkness, you better believe we're going to face some opposition. And it ain't going to be, well, they're just criticizing me a little bit. The devil's going to fight. And we're going to have to stand on the foundation of Jesus Christ to have victory, because that's what it all amounts to. He is our victory. He is the one who conquered everything. He's the conqueror. He's the overcoming King of kings and Lord of lords. It's Jesus Christ and Him alone, and that's what we got to do. So I'm going to encourage you tonight to get your faith centered there, because I heard a preacher say a long time ago, and it kind of stuck with me, that any area of your life that Christ is not the center of, you're literally practicing what they call practical atheism. It's not full-blown atheism where you just don't believe in God or whatever, but whatever area of life, like say it's finances. I don't believe God's going to bless me. I don't believe, well, you're saying over that area of your life, Jesus is not who He says He is. So that's a form of atheism. That's what they're saying. But that's stuck with it, because we really got to keep Christ in the center. But we got to understand the word sin, hamartia in Greek or something like that. I'm not sure how you say it for sure, but it means to miss the mark. It means to get off center a little bit. It means basically if I'm shooting at that Mountain Dew cannon, I miss the target. I fall short. I don't make the target. But Jesus is the answer to that sin problem, and I got to stay focused right on Him. It doesn't. If you've ever shot bows or guns, it don't take much of a shift in aim to have you miss your target. They don't take much. So we've got to stay centered on Christ. Why? Because He's the foundation. If you get knocked off Him, your perspective gets changed. That's when you're going to find trouble. And that's when you're going to have issues, even walking and living for God. And that's when you're going to find yourself in temptations that seem overbearing and persecutions that seem overbearing or things like that. But when we stand on the foundation, we cannot lose. Jesus said that the one that stands on His word, stands on Him, He's going to liken to a wise man that built his house upon the rock. That's who we are. We built our house upon the rock. See, the confession was on the day when Jesus said that, upon this rock, I will build my church. Talking about the church, foundation of the church. Stay with me on that. It was when Peter confessed, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And he said, Peter, you didn't get that by yourself. My Father gave that to you. He says, upon this rock, I will build my church, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Upon the fact that He is the Son of the living God, upon the fact that He is the Christ, upon the fact that He is the Messiah. That's the foundation of the church. That foundation cannot be defeated. Nobody can dig it up. It's not going to be broken. As long as we stand right there. And we're going to have to when we stand out there. But I wanted to encourage you, too, that you're not facing any of this stuff alone. You're not facing anything in life alone. He's involved in everything that you're doing. You just need to be aware of Him. What He say in the proverb? Acknowledge Him in all your ways, and He shall direct your paths. Why? Because He's always here. The problem is not that we're getting further away from Jesus or Jesus ain't paying attention to us that day. Our problem is we don't acknowledge Him in everything we do. I'm learning how to do that even more. Jesus is working on me on that because I acknowledge Him even in Butterball when I should be whining and complaining, you know. I'm starting to think about Jesus a lot more and make Him a part of everything I do because I'm really trying to practice what I'm preaching to you guys. And I'm telling you, you can feel the presence of God no matter what's going on in your life if you'll acknowledge Him. And it makes things easier. It kind of keeps you from getting so frustrated with things in life a lot of times if you'll get focused on Jesus. Why? How many of you can be frustrated when the Holy Spirit's being poured out on you? It doesn't work. How many of you can feel hateful and irritated and want to strangle somebody when you're in the presence of God? It doesn't happen. Why? Because He is love. He is peace. He is joy. And you can access that anytime, any day. No matter where you're at, no matter what you want. Because He walks in the midst of everything we do. He's in the midst of His churches. The building's not the church. You are the church. So that promise is for you to take with you in everything that you do. Amen. Jesus wants that kind of relationship.
Yes, He does.
And it's going to be the next point I want to get into. In the Church of Ephesus, he writes a couple things that I want to point out. I'm going to actually try to be kind of quick today. This is some of the last stuff I'll talk about, and we'll pray and see what the Holy Spirit wants to do about altar service. But, of course, just because it's the last thing I want to talk about, I mean it'll be quick necessarily. We'll see. He tells the Church of Ephesus, I know your works. You got to remember He walks in the midst of the churches. So everything we do, He knows. He knows what we're doing. He knows what we're not doing. He's telling them, I know your works. I know your patience. You put up with persecutions. You put up with opposition. You put up with all kinds of stuff. And for my name's sake, you did not faint. You kept it all. You kept the faith. You kept going. They worked hard. The Church of Ephesus, according to Jesus' testimony of them, was working hard. They were doing a lot of stuff right.
That's right.
And the point I want to make there is because he said, nevertheless, I still have somewhat against thee that you have left your first love. What's the point? The point is you can be so busy working for God that you forget to love Him.
Yes, yes.
And when things get hectic, we live in a hectic world. We live in a world full of social media when everything is fast-paced. People got to go to work and things are always changing. Logan Cash is finding that out with the new baby. Life changes. It's different. And things get more hectic and harder to put up there to deal with. And you got to adjust. There's all kinds of stuff like that interferes with things, and sometimes all you get focused on is, well, I got to do this. We got to go practice for worship. We got to go get announcements rolled down. We got to go practice, study for a sermon, whatever. And what we do is forget to be intimate with them.
That's right.
We forget to love them, and that's a heavy offense. That's a heavy offense according to Jesus. He said, look, you got to acknowledge this fact. You got to repent and do the first works over, because He said, I'll come quickly and remove your candlestick. They were doing the works. They were even testing those that were saying they were apostles and finding they were not. They were doing a lot of good stuff. They were operating. They were, by all outward appearances, it probably looked like they were a very successful, dedicated, hard-working church. Because Jesus telling them, look, you're putting up with all this stuff and you have not fainted. I know your works. I know your labor. I know your patience, and you can't bear evil. They was even turning away from sin. He said, you can't bear them which are evil. He's going through all this stuff, acknowledging them on what they were doing. He said, for my name's sake, you labored. You struggled hard. You fought the fight. But somewhere along the way, you got too busy to be intimate with me.
That's right.
And that's what's going to cost to be in a church.
That's right. That's good. That's right.
So that's a mistake we cannot make.
That's right.
And that's one reason, Cody didn't testify to this, told me, if it gets to be hectic being a teacher and life gets too rough, so let me know, because I want you to take a break and get reconnected with Jesus, because teaching is important, I get that, and we need teachers, and I understand we have to do this and that, but if it's costing you your intimacy with Jesus, you are outside of the will of God.
That's right. Amen. That's right.
And I want you to know that.
That's right.
I feel like the Holy Spirit really wanted us to deal with this tonight, because, well, things are hectic right now, for me anyway, and things are changing.
That's right.
But I have a personal testimony on that. When I first got saved and started preaching, I had this exact problem. And what the problem, the thing is, the reason it's dangerous is because you won't know it. You won't know what's happening until you're backslid. And you don't want nothing to do with church because it don't work. Is what you think. But when I first got saved and started preaching, I made a mistake. Actually, my pastor, Dan, I hadn't been really saved in the church for about 3 months or whatever, and he asked me to become the youth pastor, which I thought, great, God's already moving in my life and opening up doors. This is cool. I thought it's got to be the plan of God. So I was like, yeah, I'll be the youth pastor. Started doing that. Started youth pastoring. Then I took on a Sunday school class and was preaching every Wednesday night. Then he decided to put me in Arkansas Institute of Ministry, where I was having to study and do homework and do school. Plus, I was working 6 days a week at the shop. Around that time, Tatum was born, and she was early, and she's on oxygen and medication. There's all kinds of stuff going on in my life. My wife will tell you I neglected a lot of my family because I worked hard for the kingdom back then. I studied all the time. I was in prayer all the time. I was working hard. I did not want to fail God. That became my life's purpose. And everything else, I was doing all the work. And on the inside, I was miserable. And I felt like such a failure. What was happening? I was doing what Ephesus was doing. I was doing the work, but I was forgetting to keep the relationship in it. You can do that with your spouse, too.
That's right.
Relationship, because Jesus works, it works the same way.
That's right.
It's a relationship. It's not complicated or technical, it's a relationship, just like ours. You have to communicate, you have to participate, that's just the way it is. If you don't, but husbands are bad about doing what the church services does to their wife. Well, I'm the breadwinner, I gotta go to work and everything else, so, I'm focused on that, and focused on my career, because that's gonna build us a better future, and you're working on that, and you're so tired, you come home and you don't have time to talk to your wife and everything. Next thing you know, she's on social media talking to somebody in no place.
That's right.
Because you ain't doing what you're supposed to do. Because what you do, you forgot to be intimate. Intimate's more important than a lot of the work we're doing half the time.
That's right. Amen.
And Jesus makes it abundantly clear right there that he'd rather us love him and be intimate with him than be doing all kinds of work for his name's sake.
Amen. Amen.
And I want us to deal with that tonight, because as we get ready to move out there, that is the main thing, that is the biggest foundation of all that we really got to get back to, and that is the love of God.
That's right. That's right.
Not just how we love Jesus, but the love of God flowing through us into others, because that's what's going to change the community. That's what's going to change people's lives. The anointing's going to be great, it's going to help, but it's going to be the fact that you love him.
That's right.
Anybody sitting here that has a testimony or an encounter with Jesus, the thing that sticks out to you, the thing that changes you, is because it is his love. It's not his power being poured out, it's because he loved you when you know you don't deserve it.
That's right, bro.
His love changes.
That's right.
His love hooked me when I found out who he really was, after all that frustrating years of everything else, because that's what it did to me. I was doing all those works, and I felt like I was getting no reward. And I was frustrated and empty because I wasn't being intimate with Jesus, and things wasn't working the way it said it was supposed to in here, because I wasn't keeping the relationship right, and it caused me to backslide. My kids suffered greatly because of that. My family suffered greatly because of that. Me and my wife, after that, went through 2 separations, drinking, and doing all kinds of stupid stuff that we've got scars on our hearts and minds from now. And plus the inconsistency and instability of the kids in and out of church one day, and then next time, dad mad at God. You know, they had experiences that they had to live over because of my stupidity. And what was the real problem? I was working for the kingdom, but I wasn't loving the kingdom.
Amen, that's good, yes.
And that was my problem. And I thought he was mad at me. That's what I felt like. That's why I asked him that question that Luke Holter answered. For 12 years I asked God that question. Am I a good son? That's all I really wanted from him. I wanted an acknowledgement that, hey, you're noticing what I'm doing. And all this stuff, it was so important to me. What child doesn't want their dad proud of them? You know, I wanted God to be proud of me, and I wanted to know. Never could get an answer till a weird-looking prophet, full sleeve tattoos on his arm that most people wouldn't even allow in church, answered the question that I'd only asked to God. It was really amazing, but when I met Jesus, the real Jesus at that altar, and saw the vision of his love for me, that's what changed. What it did is release me from all the work that I'm supposed to do. I don't do this because I have to. I do this because I love Jesus. He loves me.
That's right, amen.
And I love him. And
Yes.
I'm doing this because I want to share that with all of you. I want you to experience that because that will change your life as well. And then when you get it, I'm not saying any of you don't, but you know, when you really get it, and we go start spreading that out there, it's going to change a lot of people's lives. And it's the love of God.
That's right.
It's the love of Jesus. The love is the foundation that we got to stand on too. The love of God. And letting that flow through us is so important. People will probably wonder why we left the girl around this week. We didn't know her, had a bad reputation, everything. It's because of the love of God. She said she was homeless. I couldn't turn her away. Like I wasn't going to put her in the street.
That's right.
Was it dangerous for me? It could have been. I didn't know nothing about it. She could have been a mass murderer. I don't know. The love of God will make you take chances with people.
That's right.
Because Jesus took a chance on each one of us.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
He really did. He really did.
Yes,
He took a chance on each one of us.
Thank you.
But he tells them, remember, once you are fallen,
That's right.
and repent and do the first works over again. Or else I'm going to come and remove the candlestick out of its place. Not only that, he said, I'm going to come quickly.
That's right.
And you look that up in Greek, it means without delay.
That's
So
right.
I ain't waiting anymore. Give you a space to repent, but after that, and what's it boil down to? It had nothing to do with what they were or were not doing. It had to do with their relationship status with you.
That's right.
That is the main thing we gotta have, because that's the key to changing the drug addict out there.
That's right.
That's the key to delivering the alcoholic out there. They gotta find something that's better than the drugs, find something that's better than alcohol. I heard him testify about it. He was an alcoholic. It took Jesus. It didn't take the 12-step program. It took the one-step Jesus program. Why? Because Jesus' love was better than alcohol.
That's right. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It's better. And we need that flowing in us. But I remember from whence you were fallen, when you stated that word out, it doesn't just mean to, okay, yeah, I remember all my sin and everything else, but it means to keep in mind, keep this stuff in mind at all times. Remember. That's why I talk about my encounter with Jesus so often. I keep that fresh in mind because I don't want to forget to love him again. I realized that was my vital mistake. God didn't do anything wrong. I was the one that was wrong, even though I was working really, really hard for his name. I was doing all that. Don't get me wrong. I worked myself to a frazzle. I was exhausted most of the time. And I was doing it for Jesus. But I wasn't intimate with him. I was praying because I needed a sermon. I was praying because I needed it. It was, I was like a lot of people in church. I wouldn't have a prayer life if I didn't have problems. But I wasn't relating to him. I wasn't really communicating. And I was putting my list on him, but there was no personal stuff. Of course, I didn't know back then that you could be real with Jesus the way we do now because I was raised in denominational thinking. And I'm glad Jesus delivered me from that. But it changes everything when you realize you can be intimate with Jesus. And he wants that. He actually covets you.
That's right.
He wants you to be intimate with him. But I encourage you tonight to remember your encounter. Remember, it's okay to remember who you used to be. And God delivered me from that. I do it all the time. I think about it all the time.
That's
I
right.
don't want to go back down. Ever. And I need the love of God.
Yes, sir.
I want more. You really can't get it. He can't love you any more than he already does, and he'll never love you any less than he already does. It won't work that way, but I want to experience more of love. I want to encounter more,
Yes.
is what I'm saying, and I want you guys to have that also,
Yes.
because that's what changes things. I can testify about the love of God. Because he didn't, in that encounter, he didn't do anything special. I mean, I saw the vision of him, but what it was the arms wide open with the tears running down his face, and that's what I could see. I could see his love for me. I saw as much as my human mind can understand how much he loved me. And that's what changed me. That's what's, I'm sold, that's it, you got me. It's like instantaneous, fell in love with Jesus right then, the real Jesus.
Yes.
And it's been a ride ever since that I'll never look back on, don't necessarily, never regret it. I haven't even been tempted to ever go back to the way I used to be. It changes everything. And I'll almost be brave enough to say this. If you are a Christian right now and you still struggle with some days I don't really want to be a Christian, some days I kind of want to go back to the world, you haven't met Jesus like I have. If you encounter him in that life, there's nothing the world has to offer that you would take over what Jesus has. And that one encounter was just a quick, brief glimpse that I believe the Holy Spirit has revealed to me. And it changed everything. And I still remember it to this day. And it was because Jesus loved me. And the order here is for us to love him. So I want to encourage you tonight about your relationship with Jesus. That's got to be the first thing, the first priority. Above singing on the worship team, above the preaching, above cleaning, above doing whatever it is you do for the ministry's sake, or for the kingdom's sake. Above that, you've got to be intimate with Jesus. You've got to keep that relationship intact. That's where your focus really makes it. Here's what I want to ask tonight, because I want to pray for some people. We don't have to bow our heads or nothing like that. I'm kind of open here anyway. All of us have issues. Everybody knows that. There really ain't no point in all that privacy, so to speak. When the Bible tells us to bear one another's burdens, I want to know who I need to pray for, you know. But anyway, all I really want to deal with is this. Are you here tonight? And you've been so busy you forgot to be intimate with Jesus lately. It feels like you're slipping away, like that relationship is suffering. The relationship. I'm not telling you you're doing a bunch of sin, you're not doing a bunch of other stuff, whatever. We're not talking about that. I'm just saying, you feel like you're drifting away from Jesus. And if you are, God wants to reinstate you tonight, if that's the word to use. I don't really know. He wants to put you back where you belong in your heart. And I believe you'll feel the presence of God, and I believe you'll feel the love of Jesus wash over you. But above that, I believe it'll start your love relationship with Jesus. You know, I talk to my wife because I love her. You know, I spend time with her because I love her. You know, I think Jesus has got to be the same way. I'm not doing it to get to heaven. That's kind of a shocking statement to church people. I ain't doing it. I don't live for Jesus because I want to go to heaven. I live for Jesus because I love him. Because he loved me. That's it. And I want you guys just like that. We're going to prophesy to people out there because we love Jesus and we love them. Jesus has compelled us to love them. Because it does. It'll make you love others. We're going to preach the gospel to them and try to get them to Jesus because we love them. Because we love Jesus. And we know that Jesus has the same love for those guys that are lost as he does for us. Matter of fact, he'll leave you safe in the church and he'll go find the one that's lost. According to Scripture, he'll leave the 99 to find the one. That's right. Straight. That's love, baby. That's right. That's what we're supposed to demonstrate out there. But we can't demonstrate that to others if we don't stay focused. I said the love of God and loving Jesus is the foundational thing because he commanded it at the first commandment. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind. That's the first commandment. That's the foundation of our relationship. Because we love Jesus. And if you're here tonight and you feel like your relationship with Jesus is drifting apart, I want us to pray because you need to reinstate that. You need to. It don't take much. Look, Jesus is a forgiver, guys. He's gracious. He's merciful. You don't beg him to come back to you. He's waiting with open arms, waiting for you. He's compelling you. He's the one wooing you, if you can look at it that way. We don't have to charm Jesus and romanticize Jesus to have him look at us. He's like, no, no, I want him to come. You know, he's eager for you. But if that's you, just slip your hand and put it right back down. And I need that relationship intact. That's the main thing. And then if you're here too, and you just haven't, that's really not your number one priority. Your relationship with Jesus is not something, you're a Christian and you do the things that you need to do. You know, you pray, you come to church, you do all that stuff. But you spend a lot of time on other things outside of Jesus too, and you don't really focus as much as you would like to on Jesus. In other words, maybe you're not letting him be a part of everything that you do. Because he wants to be, guys. He does. His word's very clear. Acknowledge him in all your ways, he shall direct your path. All your ways means literally everything. If you're on Facebook, acknowledge Jesus. That's what it's saying. If you're on Snapchat, acknowledge Jesus. I can guarantee you, most of your teenagers on Snapchat, you're probably not acknowledging Jesus. Just saying. But I'm not looking at you. I said, you teenagers, it's for the big teenagers that's watching on camera, not none of you guys wouldn't do nothing like that. But you want to make a commitment. Because even me, guys, I'm going to make this commitment too. I'm going to learn to acknowledge Jesus and everything else more than I do now. That's right. And I'm learning to do it more. Trust me, Jesus is on my mind a lot. But I want more. I mean, that's right. What I've got here is not enough. That's right. I mean, it's great and it's gotten me this far, but now it's like, okay, what else?
Yes, deeper.
I want more revelation, not because I want to be smart, not because I want to be able to tell people, look what Jesus did for me. I mean, that's good. I want to testify about what Jesus, but because I love Jesus. That's right. When you love somebody, you want to know everything about them. Then once you learn it, you're probably like, I wish I didn't know that. But that's people. Everything about Jesus is good. Everything.
Yes.
But now I wanted to bring that out because the point is there. If you don't love him, right, you don't love him, you're not in love with him, he's not number one priority, so to speak. He did give the warning, I will remove your candlestick. That means you cease to be a church. The candlestick is a church, so I'm going to remove it. And you may still be here going through the motions, but Jesus will no longer acknowledge you in that light. Kind of blows that once saved, always saved stuff on the word.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
But it's not because of sin over and over again, it's because we forget to love him.
That's right.
And that's why I wanted to say, if you need to make that commitment with Jesus tonight, I'll pray with you. I want to redo it too, because I was like, my life's busy. I don't give him the credit due. I'll admit it in front of everybody. I don't know if the camera's still going or not, but I don't always give Jesus the credit due. I don't always give him the attention that I could. Even when I'm studying a lot of times, it's hard. You're studying the Word of God, and you would think, well, that's spending time with Jesus. But if you're doing it just because you need something to preach, you're not really spending time with Jesus.
That's right.
There's a difference. And that's why I said you can be doing all the right things and still be missing Jesus. And that's the dangerous part.
That's right.
That's the dangerous part. If you want to make that commitment tonight, I tell you what. Everybody that wants to pray over this, just come stand up here. We'll pray together. Especially if you raise your hand. I want you to come up here and let's pray. It's probably more of a teaching type style.